Welcome. Thank you for joining us for this month's Solutions of Change monthly mental health moment. This month, we're talking about managing anxiety, exploring the foundations of fear. We'll explore how anxiety becomes rooted in our daily functionality, but we'll also talk about ways to address, manage, and decrease the symptoms of anxiety. Let's get started. What is anxiety? Anxiety is a very common mental health concern. And the reason is because that anxiety is a natural reaction to a stressful circumstance or event. In many cases, when stress is related to an unresolved issue, increased anxiety can become a consistent part of daily life. When anxiety is exacerbated, it can present as excessive or persistent worry or fear. This can be associated with daily situations. Regular anxious feelings can look like nervousness associated with maybe being invited to a special event. Maybe you don't know what to wear, or you don't know the people who are going to be there, or even it's at a place that you've never been to before. An anxiety disorder can be a lot more intense. Think of it in this way: you've been invited to a special event, but your anxiety tells you that the person who invited you doesn't really want you to be there, that maybe there's some ulterior motive, even if there isn't any evidence to back up that thought process. Maybe it is the difficulty in selecting an outfit in the way that you think about it for weeks before the event, even though you've chosen something that's appropriate already, and you just feel like no matter what you wear is going to be wrong. Maybe it's the idea of visualizing the worst possible things that could happen if you were to attend the event over and over again in your head. Or the potential of battling with the idea of not going, but then also battling with the guilt that the person who invited you really wants you to be there, and their feelings will be hurt if you decide not to go. So, complex negative thought processes can be a sign of clinically significant anxiety. And when I say clinically significant anxiety, I mean something that should be addressed, treated, or resolved in a way that allows you to create more functionality in your life. So, what causes anxiety? There is a basic list of occurrences that can cause anxiety, but every person is unique, and anxiety can be associated with many different circumstances. Let's look at a short list of things that have the potential to cause anxiety. Trauma. A traumatic experience or event has the potential to create significant anxiety for the person who experienced the trauma related to things that are associated with that trauma. So, a person who has been in a serious car accident, who may have had a serious injury, or the car accident resulted in the death of another person, has the potential to develop a severe amount of anxiety associated with driving or riding in a vehicle. Now, trauma is something that we all have the potential to experience, but the way that we manage and resolve our trauma has a tendency to decrease the amount of negative emotional impact that that trauma has on our functionality. Illness. So, a person who is experiencing or has experienced an illness that has been debilitating, has caused them to have to be dependent on others for their care, has caused a significant change in their life and the way that they function, has the potential to be caught up in that worry, right? Worry about medical care, about medical bills, about managing the relationships with a caretaker that can be a loved one. Their worry can become significant in the way that it creates an anxiety disorder, but that anxiety disorder is not simply related to the illness, but it's related to the impact of the illness. Stress buildup. Now, we all experience stress, whether it is from something big or from something small. Our experiences in this lifetime can cause stress. It's a natural human reaction. However, it's important for us to manage that stress. When we don't manage that stress, it can turn into something more significant like anxiety. Picture a Coke bottle or a soda bottle or a pop bottle, depending on where you're from, that has been shaken. And that shaking is stress, right? And so when we shake it a little and we let it rest, we know that it can sit and later we'll be able to open it without it exploding. However, if we shake it a little and shake it some more and shake it a little more and then try to open it, then we know that it's going to explode. And so this is a representation of what stress looks like. If we're not managing that stress or resolving that stress, then the more stress that we pile on ourselves, the more likely we are to explode. That explosion can very well resemble anxiety or be anxiety. And so it's important for us to manage our stress in an effective way. And whether that is on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, or we are managing a specific situation that causes us stress, when we do that in a way that works for us, whether that's relaxation, whether that's talking with friends, whether that is taking a nap, because naps are important. No matter how we manage the stress, as long as we're managing it in an effective way, we decrease the potential of our stress turning into anxiety. Personalities. So some people's personality is in a way that they question everything. They want to explore all the options. And that's good. That can be a superpower. However, when all those options and all those questions lead to answers that are based in negativity, then we have the potential of creating anxiety. What it is that a person who has the ability to question everything, who finds themselves only focusing on negative outcomes, teaches themselves that everything ends in a negative outcome. And so if I'm thinking about something that I'm going to do and I have perceived the negative outcome without the potential of a positive outcome or a more than likely outcome, which is something somewhere in the middle, I'm telling myself that all things end in a negative way. And so I'm going to start to worry about everything and how it's going to end because I've already taught myself that it ends in a negative way. So when we have a personality that causes us to question things, that causes us to explore all the options, it's important that when we are coming to conclusions based on those options and based on the answers to those questions, then we make considerations. In this, I like to tell people to do a 3-step process. And so if you have anxiety and you know that you are going to potentially consider the worst case scenario, it's important to force yourself to also consider the best case scenario. What's the most amazing thing that could possibly happen? But then also find yourself in somewhere in the middle where you can say there's more of a potential that something like this will happen because that's kind of what normally happens. Now, it doesn't mean that there isn't the potential for the worst case scenario to happen, but it's important for us in our thought process to consider other things. When we consider other things, then when things are occurring in our lives, then we don't immediately go to the worst case scenario and tell ourselves or allow our anxiety to tell ourselves that that's what's going to happen, because there are other potentials. This is an important part of addressing some of the stress and some of the anxiety that is caused by specific personalities. It doesn't mean that you have to change your personality, but it helps to adjust the thought processes so that all of our answers and all of our options don't lead to something that is anxiety provoking. So how do we treat anxiety? There are many ways to treat anxiety, and some of them just start with the individual, right? Maybe it's that we need more physical activity or more balanced diet or incorporating more relaxation processes into our daily life. But sometimes when our anxiety is severe, and when I say severe, I mean debilitating, that it causes you to avoid certain situations, not in a way that you avoid it because it's just not your thing, like you don't like the vibe, but maybe it's that you have a significant amount of fear associated with being in a certain situation. When we start to recognize that those situations cause us anxiety, but we want to be more involved in those situations, then it becomes a question of what other types of treatment can we consider. So, help-seeking behaviors are so important in this part. And so maybe it's that you join a support group and you talk to someone about feelings of anxiety and things that people do that work for them to address their anxiety. Maybe it's that you talk with a therapist and you talk about the underlying thought processes that are a significant part of what causes your anxiety. And you get to a place where you can recognize them and resolve them in a way that allows you to leave them behind and create functionality in a way that works for you. Maybe anxiety is very significant and it is to the point where you feel like you need assistance from a medication, and that's something that a doctor can help you explore. It is important for us to recognize that the way that we treat our anxiety is just as unique as we are as individuals. And so one shoe doesn't always fit everyone's foot, one size doesn't fit all, whatever we say. It is important for us to recognize that what works for someone else may not work for us. And so it's important that we have those conversations that say, these are the things that are important to me. These are the things that my anxiety is keeping me from doing, and discuss it in a way that allows us to recognize treatments and be open to different things in an effort to create a more peaceful space for ourselves and decrease those symptoms of anxiety that impact the way that we function, specifically and especially on a daily basis. Now that we've explored some basic information related to anxiety, what do we do with that? The first thing that we can do is be aware. Be aware that these symptoms can sometimes mean more than just nervousness. If it's something that's persistent, that causes us worry and fear, and we don't feel like we can control it, then that might be clinically significant anxiety. What we do with that is seek help. Help-seeking behaviors are some of the most important things we can do to address our mental health concerns. And then we can continue to talk about anxiety and how it causes us difficulties in our lives with others, and have that open dialogue that allows us to talk about our unique needs, talk about the things that work for us, but also get ideas from others and know when we need to continue exploring things to address our anxiety. So with that said, please join us for this month's Solutions of Change Monthly Mental Health Moment Open Group Forum next Thursday on October the 28th from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. via Zoom. We'll continue the conversation about managing anxiety, the foundations of fear. We look forward to having you. We'll see you then.